The morning sun rose over Earth's outer colonies, casting a golden glow on the peaceful settlements. People went about their daily routines, unaware of the dark shadow that loomed just beyond their reach. In the vastness of space, a powerful alien fleet, bristling with advanced technology, silently approached the colony. For years, humanity had faced the occasional skirmish with alien races. But this time, the threat was different. This time, it was an invasion. The alien ships, sleek and formidable, descended upon the colony with overwhelming force. Their weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Laser beams that cut through buildings like butter, drones that stormed the streets, and war machines that crushed everything in their path. The human defenders, though brave, were simply no match for the aliens' superior technology. The colony's defenses, built to withstand minor attacks, fell within minutes, and the citizens of Earth had no choice but to flee or perish. The alien invaders broadcasted a message across all frequencies, mocking humanity. This is the fate of a species too weak to protect itself. Earth, you are insignificant. Your resistance is futile. The message was clear. Humanity was nothing more than a minor nuisance in the galaxy, and now it would pay for its arrogance. As the message echoed through the airwaves, Earth's leaders watched in silence, the weight of their failure pressing down on them. They had always hoped for peace, relying on diplomacy and negotiation to resolve conflicts. But now, their hope had been shattered, and the time for words had passed. The galaxy's most advanced weapon, long hidden beneath the surface of Earth, would now be brought to light. Humanity's last hope was not in diplomacy, but in destruction. At the heart of Earth's military, Commander Eric stood before a map, his face hard as stone. Eric had been through countless battles, but this one was personal. His family, his wife and children, had been killed in an earlier alien raid, one that had left Earth's military helpless to respond. The loss haunted him, pushing him to the edge of madness. He had always believed in the power of diplomacy, but after seeing the devastation and the mockery humanity had endured, he felt a deep, burning rage within him. He looked at the soldiers gathered in the room, all of them feeling the same grief and anger. "We've been too soft," Eric said, his voice steady but filled with fury. "We've relied on words for too long, hoping the aliens would respect us. But now, they've shown us their true nature. It's time to fight back." His eyes scanned the faces of his team, hardened soldiers who had seen war, but none like this. "And we got something they don't expect, something they'll regret provoking." Behind the scenes, a shadowy government organization had been preparing for this very moment. For centuries, Earth had held a secret, a weapon so powerful that it could change the course of the galaxy. This weapon was not built by any human hand. It was ancient, discovered buried deep beneath the surface of Earth. It had been hidden away for centuries, kept secret from the rest of the galaxy. Now, the time had come to unleash it. Commander Eric's team was tasked with activating the weapon. They knew the risks. Unleashing this power could cost them everything. But they also knew that without it, humanity would be doomed. As they made their way toward the underground facility where the weapon was stored, the atmosphere was tense, filled with anticipation and dread. They could only imagine what kind of destruction the weapon could unleash. Would it be enough to turn the tide of war, or would it be their undoing? As Eric's team descended into the facility, they were unaware that the alien fleet, still in orbit above Earth, was preparing for the final assault. The aliens had underestimated humanity, believing them weak and divided. But what they didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this day for centuries. The hidden weapon was the last card humanity had left to play, and they were ready to reveal it to the galaxy. The team reached the control room, where ancient consoles blinked to life. The power was immense, and the weapon, once thought to be a myth, was now a reality. Commander Eric's hand hovered over the activation switch, his heart racing. He knew that once the weapon was unleashed, there would be no going back. Earth would never be the same. As the countdown began, the aliens above Earth remained unaware of the storm that was about to hit them. The human fleet, still reeling from the alien attack, was preparing to launch a counterstrike. But their true weapon, Earth's hidden Star-Destroyer fleet, was still a secret. The tension reached a fever pitch. Earth's fate hung in the balance. Would humanity be able to take back what was theirs, or would the aliens crush them once and for all? The countdown reached its final moments. With a deep breath, Commander Eric pressed the button, unleashing a force that would forever change the course of the galaxy. The hidden Star-Destroyers, dormant for centuries, powered up and revealed themselves to the alien invaders. Their massive forms broke through the clouds, cloaked in advanced technology, and their weapons powered up with terrifying force. The galaxy would soon know the true power of Earth. The aliens had angered humanity, and now they would see what a wounded species was capable of. The battle had just begun, and the universe would never forget the name of Earth. As the alien fleet continued its relentless assault on Earth's colonies, panic spread across the planet. Colonies that had once been symbols of humanity's expansion into the stars were now reduced to smoldering ruins. Alien ships hovered above, mocking Earth's helplessness. The human resistance, though fierce, was barely holding on. Humanity's greatest assets, its colonies and technology, were being torn apart, and it seemed there was no way to stop the invasion. In the midst of this chaos, Earth's leaders convened in secret, a group of the most trusted and powerful individuals within the government and military. They gathered in a hidden underground facility, their faces grim with the weight of the decisions they were about to make. Time was running out, and Earth's survival depended on the choices they would make in the coming hours. At the center of the room stood President Calloway, his voice low but resolute as he addressed the assembly. "We've been pushed to the brink. Our colonies are falling, and Earth itself is under threat. But there is one option we have left. A weapon, an ancient fleet that has been hidden for centuries. It's a last resort, and we've never used it. But if we don't act now, there will be no Earth left to defend." The room fell silent as the weight of the president's words sank in. The weapon in question was no myth, no experimental project. It was a fleet of star-destroyers, massive, ancient ships capable of devastating entire fleets with a single strike. They had been buried in a remote sector of the galaxy, their location known only to a select few. The technology that powered them was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. But activating them would come with unimaginable risks, both to Earth and to the galaxy as a whole. Commander Eric, who had been standing quietly in the back of the room, stepped forward. His mind was heavy with the memories of his family, lost in the earlier raids, and the searing desire for revenge. The president turned to him, his expression asking for Eric's counsel. "Commander, you know what this weapon is capable of. What do you think?" Eric's heart pounded as he stared at the map before him. The location of the star-destroyers marked in a sector far from Earth's reach. "I know what these ships can do," he said slowly, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. "They can wipe out entire fleets. They can turn the tide of this war. But at what cost? If we use this weapon, we may save Earth, but the destruction it causes could be felt across the galaxy. This could escalate the conflict to levels we cannot predict." The president's face hardened. "We're already at war. If we do nothing, humanity will be crushed. The alien fleet has already proven they have no regard for us. We cannot afford to wait any longer." The decision was made. The fleet of star-destroyers would be activated, and a covert mission would be launched to infiltrate enemy-controlled space and bring them online. The mission would be led by Captain Eric and his trusted crew, a team of soldiers, scientists, and engineers who had trained for this moment. There was no room for failure. The mission was dangerous. Alien patrols were scattered throughout the sector, and the human fleet was stretched thin. Eric's team would have to navigate through a maze of enemy ships, using every trick they knew to stay out of sight. Stealth, speed, and precision would be their only allies. The crew assembled in the hangar, preparing for their departure. Eric checked his gear, his thoughts racing. He could still hear the echoes of his family's laughter, see their faces in his mind, a haunting reminder of the loss he had endured. This mission wasn't just about the survival of Earth. It was personal. He had to make the aliens pay for what they had done to his family. But as he stood there, watching his team get ready, a small voice of doubt crept into his mind. Was he willing to unleash this kind of power? Could he really justify the destruction it would bring, even if it meant saving Earth? The internal conflict gnawed at him, but he pushed it aside. There was no turning back now. As the crew boarded the ship, Eric's mind went over the plan one last time. They would enter the alien-controlled space in a stealth shuttle, avoiding detection as they moved toward the sector where the Stardestroyers were hidden. Once there, they would activate the fleet, turning it on the alien invaders and giving humanity a fighting chance. The journey through enemy space was tense. Every sensor sweep felt like a threat. Every asteroid field a potential hiding place for enemy ships. Eric's team moved like shadows, silent and deadly, evading enemy patrols at every turn. Their shuttle was equipped with the latest cloaking technology, making them nearly invisible to the enemy, but they couldn't afford to make a single mistake. One wrong move, and they would be detected, their mission doomed before it even began. As they neared the remote sector where the Stardestroyers lay in wait, the team's tension was palpable. Eric could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. They were about to unleash a weapon that could obliterate entire worlds, and no matter how much he wanted to avenge his family, he knew that once the weapon was activated, there would be no going back. The shuttle entered the sector, and the Stardestroyers came into view, massive, hulking ships that dwarfed anything Eric had ever seen. They had been dormant for centuries, hidden beneath layers of technology. But now they were alive again. The power that radiated from them was overwhelming. Eric's hand hovered over the control panel, and for a moment he hesitated. Was this the right choice? Could humanity handle such destruction? But there was no time for second thoughts. The alien fleet was already regrouping, preparing for its final strike on Earth. The mission was clear. Earth had to be saved, and the only way to do that was with this ultimate weapon. With a deep breath, Eric activated the command sequence, and the Stardestroyers roared to life. The moment they powered up, Eric knew there was no going back. The weapon had been unleashed. The fate of the galaxy had been sealed. Now, it was up to humanity to fight back and prove to the aliens that Earth was not to be underestimated. But as the fleet powered up, Eric couldn't shake the feeling that this war was only just beginning, and the consequences of this decision would be felt for generations to come. As the Stardestroyers launched into space, ready to face the alien invaders, Eric stood at the helm, his heart heavy with the weight of the choices he had made. Would this act of revenge save Earth, or destroy everything humanity had worked for? Only time would tell. The moment had arrived. The vast, silent expanse of space was about to witness the greatest shift in power it had ever known. As the Stardestroyers powered up and broke free from the shadows of deep space, a wave of awe and terror washed over both the human fleet and the alien invaders. The once feared alien forces, so confident in their superiority, had underestimated humanity. Now, Earth was about to show them that underestimating humans was the gravest mistake they could make. For centuries, the Stardestroyers had remained dormant, hidden in the remote corners of the galaxy, a forgotten weapon of ancient technology. They had been designed to serve as humanity's last line of defense, a tool so devastating that it could tip the balance of any war. But the war had never come, and the ships had been left in the dark recesses of space, gathering dust until the time was right. Now, as Earth's last hope, they were emerging into the fray. The Stardestroyers, once silent behemoths, now came to life with a terrifying roar. Their massive engines flared, casting eerie light across the void. These were not just warships. They were symbols of humanity's resilience, its willingness to fight to the very end. As they surged forward, the alien fleet, which had once mocked Earth, now paused in shock and disbelief. What they had thought was a simple, vulnerable species had just unveiled a weapon of unimaginable power. Captain Eric stood at the helm of the flagship Stardestroyer, his eyes fixed on the distant alien ships. His mind raced, torn between the exhilaration of this moment and the fear of what this battle could bring. The weapon was in motion. The battle for Earth's survival had begun, and there was no turning back now. "Commander, the alien fleet is advancing," a voice crackled over the communication system. It was one of his crew members, a young officer named Lieutenant Tessa, who had been by his side throughout this mission. She was nervous, her usual calm demeanor shaken by the enormity of the moment. "We're ready to engage when you give the word." Eric's fingers tightened around the control panel. The moment of truth had arrived. The Star Destroyers were fully operational, their weapon systems primed. A fleet of alien warships, sleek and deadly, filled the void before them. The sight was enough to strike fear into the hearts of any soldier. But Eric had seen far worse. He had watched his family perish at the hands of these invaders. He had nothing left to lose. "Fire," Eric said, his voice cold and steady. The silence of space was shattered by a barrage of energy blasts, so powerful that they seemed to warp the very fabric of reality. The Star Destroyers unleashed their full might, sending wave after wave of destructive firepower toward the alien fleet. The alien ships, caught off guard by the sheer force of the attack, tried to retaliate, but they were no match for the advanced technology of Earth's hidden fleet. The explosions lit up the void, a violent symphony of destruction. For Eric, the battle was both a victory and a reminder of the stakes. He could hear the screams of his fallen comrades in his mind, the faces of his family flashing before his eyes. This fight wasn't just for Earth's survival, it was personal. As he watched the alien ships explode into debris, a small part of him felt satisfaction. But that satisfaction was quickly overshadowed by the realization of the power he had unleashed. The destruction was unlike anything he had ever witnessed. The alien forces, stunned and disoriented by the sudden onslaught, regrouped, trying to counterattack with their own weapons. But Earth's fleet was relentless. The Star Destroyers, with their superior firepower, tore through the alien ranks like a hot knife through butter. The enemy ships were outmatched, their advanced technology rendered useless against the overwhelming might of humanity's new weapon. The scale of the destruction was unimaginable. Massive ships, once symbols of the aliens' dominance, were reduced to nothing more than burning wreckage in the cold vacuum of space. Explosions rippled through the alien fleet, sending shockwaves that rattled the very foundations of the battle. The once proud alien invaders were now fighting for their very survival, and it was clear they were losing. As the battle raged on, Eric's team stood ready, their focus unwavering. They had trained for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the scale of what they were witnessing. Eric could see the fear in the eyes of his crew, a reflection of his own doubts. They had unleashed a force so powerful that it was beginning to feel like a force of nature, unstoppable and all-consuming. "Commander, the enemy is retreating," Lieutenant Tessa reported, her voice tinged with disbelief. "We've done it. We've turned the tide." Eric stared at the screen before him, watching as the alien fleet scattered, their once confident ships now fleeing from the unstoppable might of Earth's Star Destroyers. A sense of victory surged through him, but it was quickly tempered by a deep, gnawing concern. The war was far from over. While this battle had been won, the cost of victory was still unclear. Earth had shown its strength, but it had also unleashed a power that could consume everything in its path. The victory was bittersweet. As the last of the alien ships disappeared into the void, Eric's thoughts turned inward. He knew that this victory came at a price. Humanity had used a weapon capable of wiping out entire fleets, of changing the very balance of the galaxy. What would be the consequences of this power? What would happen if the war escalated further? He couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a line, and there was no turning back now. The aliens had been defeated for the moment, but they would return. This battle had merely delayed the inevitable. Eric had no illusions about the future. The war had just begun, and the Star Destroyers, for all their power, might only be a temporary solution. As the Earth fleet regrouped and began to make preparations for the next stage of the war, Eric's mind drifted to his fallen comrades. They had paid the ultimate price for this victory. The Star Destroyers had given Earth a chance, but at what cost? The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth's might had been revealed, and there was no going back. The galaxy would never be the same. The aliens had learned a hard lesson, but humanity had yet to face the true consequences of its actions. The battle had raged on for days, and Earth's forces, emboldened by their newfound power, had pushed the alien fleets back into retreat. The skies were filled with the wreckage of once proud ships, the alien forces broken and disorganized. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it was capable of. The Star Destroyers, ancient machines of war, had played a pivotal role in turning the tide, unleashing destruction like never before. However, with every victory came a hidden cost, one that the people of Earth could no longer ignore. Captain Eric stood at the helm of the flagship, watching the remnants of the alien fleet retreat into the distance. His mind was elsewhere, filled with the gnawing realization that the victory they had celebrated came at a dire price. The Star Destroyers, once seen as humanity's salvation, were consuming vast amounts of resources, far beyond what the planet could afford. Earth's natural resources were depleting at an alarming rate, and even though the war seemed to be going in their favor, there was an undeniable truth. The weapon that had brought them victory could now destroy them as well. "We can't keep this up," Eric muttered under his breath, his gaze fixed on the planet below. "If we don't shut down the machines soon, Earth will be drained of everything." His voice was low but resolute, and Lieutenant Tessa, who stood beside him, could see the weight of his words pressing down on him. She had noticed the change in Eric lately. The man who had once been driven by vengeance was now grappling with the consequences of his actions. He had unleashed the Star Destroyers to avenge his family, to retaliate against the alien invaders who had destroyed so much. But now he had to confront the fact that his thirst for revenge had put his entire civilization at risk. "Commander," Tessa said softly, "we need to act fast. If the Star Destroyers keep burning through Earth's resources like this, we'll be left with nothing. The entire planet will suffer." Eric nodded grimly, the weight of their predicament sinking in. The resources required to fuel the Star Destroyers were immense, and the planet's ecosystems were beginning to collapse under the strain. The energy siphoned from Earth's core was draining it dry, and in just a few months, the planet could be rendered uninhabitable. The war had cost humanity dearly, and now it was threatening to cost them their future. He turned to his crew, his decision already made. "We need to take the Star Destroyers offline. If we don't, they'll burn through the last of our resources, and humanity will fall. I'll lead a mission to destroy the central control systems of the Star Destroyers. We won't let them destroy us." The mission was risky, and there were no guarantees. The Star Destroyers were ancient, their systems built to withstand almost anything. But if they were to be stopped, it had to be done now. Eric and his crew were the only ones who could do it. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. As the team prepared to launch, Eric couldn't help but reflect on the cost of this revenge. His quest for justice had led him to this moment, where he stood on the edge of a decision that could alter the course of human history. The destruction of the Star Destroyers was the only way to save Earth, but it also meant sacrificing the power that had allowed them to push back the alien invaders. The mission to destroy the central control was a dangerous one, with the Star Destroyers' control systems located deep within their fortified command centers. Eric and his crew would have to infiltrate the ships, bypassing countless security systems, and plant explosives at the heart of the command structures. The stakes were higher than ever. Failure meant the complete destruction of Earth's resources, and success meant losing the one weapon that had given humanity hope. Eric's mind raced as they neared the Star Destroyers. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. His personal vendetta, The desire for revenge against the aliens had driven him to unleash the Stardestroyers. But now he saw the bigger picture. Revenge had been a powerful motivator, but it had blinded him to the cost. Earth's survival was more important than any personal grudge. The crew moved with urgency as they boarded their ships, heading towards the heart of the Stardestroyers. The tension among them was palpable. Everyone knew the risk involved, but they were willing to give everything to save humanity. They knew that without the Stardestroyers, their enemies would regroup and launch a fresh assault, and Earth would have no defense left. But that didn't matter now. The planet's survival was the priority. As they infiltrated the Stardestroyers, the team encountered fierce resistance. The alien forces, desperate to protect their last line of defense, launched counterattacks that tested their resolve. The mission was perilous, and as they moved deeper into the heart of the enemy ships, sabotage from within their ranks made the situation even more dire. Someone was working against them, trying to stop the mission from succeeding. It was a betrayal that Eric never saw coming, and it added another layer of danger to the mission. "Stay focused," Eric shouted to his crew as they pushed forward. "We don't have time for distractions. The future of humanity is on the line." With every step, the team fought against both the alien forces and the internal sabotage. The clock was ticking, and the pressure mounted with every passing second. The explosives were ready, but the team had to reach the central control room before they could activate them. As Eric led his team through the labyrinthine corridors of the Stardestroyer, he realized just how far humanity had come. They were fighting not just for survival, but for their right to exist in a galaxy that had once seen them as weak and insignificant. The final battle was intense. Eric and his team fought valiantly, taking down alien soldiers one by one, all while trying to prevent the sabotage from derailing the mission. The tension was unbearable, and at moments it seemed as though everything was about to fall apart, but Eric's determination and his crew's resolve kept them going. They reached the central control room, and with one final push, they planted the explosives. "Time to end this," Eric muttered as he set the timer, the weight of his decision finally sinking in. As the team made their escape, the countdown to destruction began. They had done it. They had stopped the Stardestroyers, but at what cost? In the aftermath, Eric stood alone, looking at the Earth below. He had avenged his family, but now he had saved humanity from the brink of self-destruction. He realized, as he stared at the stars, that vengeance had its price. It had nearly consumed everything. Revenge was sweet, but in the end, it was not worth sacrificing the future. Eric had made the hard choice, and now humanity could begin to rebuild. The Stardestroyers were no longer a threat, but the lesson remained. In the pursuit of vengeance, one could lose sight of what truly mattered. The war had dragged on for what felt like an eternity. Earth had been battered and bruised, its colonies destroyed, and its people pushed to the brink of extinction. Yet, through it all, humanity had not given up. They had found strength in the most unlikely of places, in ancient, long-forgotten weapons, in unity with alien species, and in the indomitable spirit of survival. Now, the final confrontation was upon them. The alien forces had retreated deep into their stronghold, a colossal flagship that hovered ominously in the heart of Earth's solar system. It was here that the last battle would take place. The fate of both Earth and the galaxy hung in the balance. Captain Eric, once a man driven by personal vengeance, now stood at the helm of a joint human-alien fleet, leading the charge against the alien invaders. It was a surprising alliance, forged through necessity, but one that had proven strong. Eric, who had once fought alone, now had the support of unlikely allies. Alien races that had once seen humanity as weak and insignificant, but now understood its resilience. The Stardestroyers, those ancient weapons of destruction, were ready for one last battle. The alien flagship, a towering behemoth, was formidable. Its weaponry was beyond anything Earth had ever encountered, but the humans had one advantage. The Star Destroyer's weapon systems, harnessed through sheer will and determination, were now at their disposal. As Eric stood on the command bridge of the Star Destroyer flagship, staring at the enemy fleet, his thoughts drifted back to the beginning of this war. He had once been consumed by revenge, driven to fight not just for the survival of his people, but for the chance to avenge his family. But now, standing on the precipice of the final battle, he realized how far he had come. This fight was no longer about vengeance. It was about ensuring the future of humanity and of all life in the galaxy. The stakes were higher than ever. The battle began with a deafening roar. The joint human-alien fleet launched into action, moving as one. The alien flagship fired its massive cannons, sending waves of energy through space. But the Star Destroyers, now fully powered and ready, returned fire with even greater force. The sheer scale of the conflict was staggering. Explosions lit up the darkness of space, sending debris and wreckage flying in all directions. Eric was in the thick of it, directing his forces with precision. The Star Destroyer's weapon systems were devastating, and their firepower ripped through the alien fleet. Alien ships were torn apart by the barrage, their shields shattering under the pressure of the Star Destroyer's advanced weaponry. It was a spectacle of destruction, one that would forever be etched in the minds of those who witnessed it. But amidst the chaos, Eric knew that the final confrontation was not just about firepower. The alien flagship was still standing strong, and its weapons were powerful enough to turn the tide of the battle in an instant. Eric's heart raced as he ordered the fleet to concentrate all firepower on the flagship's weak point, a vulnerable spot that had been discovered through reconnaissance. The Star Destroyers fired in unison, their massive cannons sending a concentrated beam of energy toward the flagship. The impact was catastrophic. The flagship's shields collapsed, and the blast tore through its hull. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, sending shockwaves through space. The alien fleet, now leaderless and in disarray, began to retreat. The war was over. The victory, however, was bittersweet. As the debris of the alien flagship drifted through space, Eric felt a strange emptiness wash over him. The battle was won, but at what cost? The destruction that had led to this moment had been immense. The Star Destroyers, those weapons of unimaginable power, had brought victory, but they had also left their mark on humanity. The question lingered in Eric's mind: was this truly the way to peace? The crew of the Star Destroyer gathered in the aftermath of the battle. The war had ended, but the consequences of their actions were just beginning to settle in. Eric looked out over the faces of the men and women who had fought alongside him. They were weary, their faces lined with the exhaustion of war, but there was also something else, a deep sadness. They had won, but at what cost? "We did it," Lieutenant Tessa said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "We stopped them." Eric nodded, but there was no joy in his heart. He had led humanity to victory, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something precious had been lost along the way. The Star Destroyers had been humanity's salvation, but they had also shown just how dangerous power could be. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's strength, but they had also seen the depths of destruction that Earth was capable of. As the alien fleets retreated and peace was negotiated, Eric found himself standing alone in the observation deck of the flagship, gazing at the stars. The war was over, but the peace that followed felt fragile, uncertain. Humanity had proven its strength, but the question remained: would they ever again rely on violence as a solution? Could they rebuild what had been lost during the war, the moral compass that had guided them before the destruction, before the weapons, before the bloodshed? The leaders of both humanity and the alien races gathered in the aftermath to discuss the terms of peace. It was a fragile peace, one that could easily be broken if either side faltered. The scars of war were fresh, and the wounds ran deep, but there was hope. The war had shown that, despite their differences, humanity and the alien races were capable of working together. They had come together to defeat a common enemy, and that unity had been their greatest strength. As Eric met with the leaders of the alien factions, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He had led his people to victory, but now he had to confront the future. Could humanity avoid the path of destruction they had once walked? Would they learn from their mistakes, or would they once again fall prey to the temptation of power? The peace talks were long and tense, but in the end, an agreement was reached. Humanity and the alien races would work together to rebuild what had been destroyed. The Stardestroyers would be decommissioned, their power locked away, never to be used again. Earth would no longer rely on weapons of mass destruction to secure peace. The new alliance would focus on diplomacy, cooperation, and mutual respect. As the peace talks concluded and the first steps toward rebuilding were taken, Eric felt a sense of resolution, but also a deep uncertainty. The future was still unclear, and the shadow of the war would hang over humanity for years to come. But there was hope. The war had ended, and humanity had emerged victorious. But it had also learned a hard lesson. The power to destroy was easy to obtain, but the true strength of a civilization lay in its ability to choose peace, even when victory seemed within reach. As Eric looked out at the stars once more, he knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, struggles, and obstacles to overcome. But humanity had proven that, in the end, it was capable of change. And that perhaps was the greatest victory of all. The war had ended, but the story of humanity's future had only just begun. The question remained: would they choose to walk the path of peace, or would the temptation of power eventually lead them astray? Only time would tell. The war was over, but the journey was far from finished. Earth had won, but the cost was heavy, and the scars of conflict were still fresh. The once dying planet, ravaged by alien invaders and torn apart by endless battles, now began to show signs of hope. The Earth was recovering, slowly but surely. People had witnessed the devastating power of destruction and knew that this could not be the way forward. The path ahead would require a different kind of strength, a strength rooted in peace, cooperation, and the lessons learned from the horrors of war. As Earth began its recovery, the memory of Clark, the hero who had given everything for his people, would forever be etched in the hearts of humanity. His legacy was undeniable. It was Clark's sacrifice that had turned the tide of battle, his leadership that had united humanity in its darkest hour. He had fought not just for survival, but for a better future, a future where humanity could learn from its past mistakes and build something stronger, something more resilient. But even as the ruins of the war began to heal, the question lingered: would humanity stay true to the path of peace? Or would they, as so many civilizations before them, fall back into the cycle of violence and destruction? Only time would tell. The sun rose over Earth, casting its light on a world that had been broken and remade. Cities that had once been reduced to rubble now slowly began to rise from the ashes. The people of Earth, battered but unbowed, worked together to rebuild. The alliance with the alien races, once a fragile and uncertain union, now seemed like a beacon of hope. Humans and aliens alike were determined to avoid the mistakes of the past. They had learned that their strength did not lie in their weapons, but in their unity. The power to destroy had been proven, but the greater power was the ability to create, to rebuild, to grow. Clark's sacrifice had not been in vain. His death, though tragic, had sparked a turning point, a moment when humanity understood that peace was not just the absence of war, but the active pursuit of cooperation and understanding. His vision of a united galaxy, where different species could work together for a common goal, was now a reality. The Stardestroyers, those symbols of unimaginable destruction, had been decommissioned, their power locked away. Humanity had chosen to walk away from the path of violence, opting instead to focus on diplomacy, mutual respect, and the promise of a better tomorrow. The scene was set for a new era, an era where the lessons of the past would guide humanity's actions, where peace would be the ultimate goal. Yet even in this new dawn, The shadow of Clark's sacrifice loomed large. It was a reminder that the road to peace was not without its challenges. Clark had given his life to ensure that Earth and its allies could have a future, but now it was up to humanity to honor that gift. As Earth's leaders met to discuss the next steps in the rebuilding process, they knew that the future would not be easy. The war had left deep scars, not just on the planet, but in the hearts and minds of its people. The temptation of power, the lure of revenge, would always be there, lurking in the shadows. But humanity had learned a valuable lesson. Violence, no matter how justified, only leads to more violence. The true strength of a civilization was measured not by its ability to destroy, but by its ability to heal, to forgive, and to move forward. The final shot of Earth painted a hopeful picture. Where once there had been chaos and destruction, now there was peace. The sky, once filled with the wreckage of war, was now clear, with a new sense of calm washing over the planet. Humanity was rebuilding, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. The scars of the war were visible, but they were not insurmountable. The people of Earth were stronger for having faced such challenges, and now, with the knowledge of the cost of violence, they were determined to build a better future. But the story was not over. The war had been won, but the battle within humanity was ongoing. Good and evil were not just external forces. They existed within each person's heart. Clark's sacrifice was a powerful symbol of the internal struggle that everyone faced, the fight between what was easy and what was right. The temptation to seek revenge, to use power for personal gain, would always be present. It was up to each individual to choose which path they would take. The future of humanity and of the galaxy would depend on those choices. The peace that had been forged through sacrifice was fragile, and it could be lost if humanity chose the wrong path. But for the first time in a long while, there was hope. Earth had proved that even in the darkest moments, the light of unity, compassion, and cooperation could shine through. The alien threat had been vanquished, but the true challenge lay ahead. Could humanity remain on the path of peace, or would they fall into the same traps that had ensnared so many civilizations before them? As Eric stood on the command deck of the flagship, gazing out at the stars, he understood that the war might have ended, but the real work had only just begun. The story of humanity's future was still being written, and every choice made from this point on would shape the destiny of the human race. The legacy of Clark, the man who had given everything for a future of peace, would live on, not just in the history books, but in the hearts of every person who now stood together, determined to build a better world. The battle for Earth had been won, but the battle for the soul of humanity was ongoing. The journey was far from over. The question remained, would humanity stay true to the lessons they had learned, or would the temptation of power lead them down a darker path? The answer, perhaps, would come in time. For now, all that could be done was to hold on to the hope that peace and the unity that came with it would endure. The story of Earth, once on the brink of destruction, now stood at the threshold of a new beginning. The legacy of Clark would live on, a symbol of the power of sacrifice and the strength that comes from choosing peace. The dawn of a new era had begun, and humanity had the chance to build something better, if they were brave enough to stay the course.